Let me ask you something. And I really would like this to land on you. What if your entire life, every pattern, every belief, every limitation you think you have isn't actually created directly by what happened to you, but by the story that you've been telling yourself about what happened? Just imagine that for a minute. Imagine realizing that events themselves weren't the prison, the narrative was. And imagine what might happen if you took the story back. Now, welcome back to Your Inner Advocate. Today, we are rewriting a story and hopefully your life. So let's talk about the dangerous power of the inner advocate. And here's a hard truth that most of us never question. If you leave the narration of the story of your life up to the inner critic, it will write a story you'll spend your whole life trying to escape. The inner critic doesn't see your courage. It does not recognize your resilience. It doesn't remember the nights you cried and still got up the next morning. It doesn't acknowledge your heart, your effort, or even your growth. No, the inner critic is a broken narrator. It tells the darkest version of your story. The one where you should have known better, where you weren't good enough, where everything you lost was your fault. It's like giving the microphone to the one voice in the room that really doesn't like you, and then believing everything that one person says and ignoring all the other voices. The inner critic is not really a narrator, it's a fear-driven commentator. A wounded part of you trying to predict pain before it happens, basically to protect you by keeping you small and afraid. But you are actually, or you can be, the narrator of your own story. And the truth is, you've always been this, even though you didn't know it. You know, the narrator, it gets to decide the meaning of the story. The narrator gets to choose the tone, and the narrator creates heroes. Brené Brown says it's perfectly. When we deny the story, it defines us. But when we own the story, we can rewrite a brave new ending. And today, let's begin with rewriting yours. See, the truth is, we're not actually shaped by events. We're shaped by the meaning we place on events, by the story we tell about events. You know, think about it for one moment, just one moment. You have been telling the same story about for years, something that you've been telling the same story. You know the one, like the breakup, the rejection, the failure, the disappointment. That one moment that became a chapter, which became a theme, which became your identity. And I want you to ask yourself something you've maybe never before asked yourself. Has this moment shaped me? Or has the story that I've been telling about this moment shaped? Because here's the truth. Events do not define you, but the meaning you attach to the events, that defines you. Think about it. We're defined by the meaning we place on things. Think about two people, two of them going through the same situation. One says, "This broke me," and the other one said, "This built me." Same event, completely different story, completely different life. For instance, I heard this interesting story. Um, somebody was working on this research project, and there was a series of questions that were asked, and they asked them many different people. And what struck them was two different people in two different areas of life. Right, one of them was the CEO of the biggest company in North America, and the other one was a guy who's down on his luck, homeless on Skid Row. And the question was the same, like basically, what do you attribute your success or downfall in life to? And the CEO said, my parents were alcoholics. And the person on Skid Row said the same thing. Interesting, eh? Two people decided a whole different meaning to the same situation, and one was propelled to the top, and one was lowered to the bottom. That's the truth. Events don't define you, although the meaning you place on the events, that can definitely define you. And that's how powerful storytelling is. It's how your mind makes sense of pain. It's how your heart makes meaning of chaos. When you shift the story, you shift emotion, you shift your belief, you shift the next decision you make, and eventually you shift the entire direction of your life. And it starts with one sentence, one new truth, one new way of seeing what's happened. If you've listened to a lot of my episodes, you'll see that this is one of the things that I'm working on trying to share. This is one of the things that completely changed my life. Because my stories kept me weak and small and insignificant. And then when I changed the story, I found my way out. It's not what happens to you. It's the meaning you place in the story you tell about what happened. So think about this. This is another thing I love. Redirection is not failure. So we'll talk about something that changed my life when I finally understood it. Sometimes things don't work out. And the things that don't work out are probably the things that were never meant to. And it sounds like cliche, but if you think about it, how many times in your life have you looked back at something you desperately wanted, prayed for, cried over, and clung to, only to realize later that it would have been the wrong thing for you? Yeah, for instance, me, working my way up a ladder into a management position at a high-profile building, thinking I finally come to it, hitting stress so hard that I ended up in the emergency ward, in the cardiac ward, thinking I was dying of a heart attack, realizing that this is how it was going to end. And then burning all the bridges and going back to school and finding out what I was absolutely meant to do. Rejection, it's often, if not always, redirection. Failure is almost always protection. And delays are divine timing. Steve Jobs said, you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking back. And you know what? He's right. But you know what else? You actually, when you're the narrator, you choose which dots to connect. You also choose how to connect them. You can connect the dots into a story of pain, or like I've done, into a story of purpose. You can connect the dots into failure or into the foundational things that built your life. See, when you change the meaning, you change the memory. You rewire the emotion and the emotional signature of the past. So here's a tough one to kind of hold on to, because this doesn't sound great. But the truth is, the moment you stop being the victim and start being the narrator, everything changes. There's a moment in everyone's healing journey where something clicks, just snap, where the question shifts from, why did this happen to me? Why me? To, what is this trying to teach me? That is the most powerful shift of your life. And that moment, that pivot, is exactly the moment you have a choice to take back your power. If you listen to narration in stories, narrators ask some different questions. Narrators are always looking for the lesson, the growth, the transformations. If you've ever read The Way of the Peaceful Warrior, you'll see that the narrator is kind of in the background there. Victims are looking for evidence. They're looking for evidence that they're doomed from the beginning, and they're telling the story how they're doomed forever. And it's just a different way of looking at it. And victimhood is a story. But honestly, it's not the only one available to you. And it's certainly not the truest one. You're not here to survive the story. You're here to shape it or reshape it. You're here to become the hero of your story. And when you become the narrator, you stop reenacting the same emotional scenes over and over again. You just rewrite the script. You elevate the character, and most of all, you choose a different ending. And then you start building the story towards that. Truth is, in the story of your life, you're meant to be the hero, even if you don't feel like one. A lot of times heroes don't feel like heroes. Heroes are only normal human beings who stood up with 16 seconds of unbridled courage. Think about every great story has a hero. But here's the thing most people forget. Heroes rarely feel like heroes when the story's happening. Yeah. Courage is not the absence of fear. It's taking the action in the face of fear. The heroes, they feel scared. They feel overwhelmed. They doubt themselves. They question their own path. They break down. But the one difference is they start again. Marcus Aurelius said, the obstacle is the way. And whether you realize it or not, every obstacle you've ever faced is shaping you into becoming the person, the hero of your story. You did not fall apart. You were being forged. I don't know if you've heard my story, the Zen Buddhist story about how do you make a fine instrument or a fine weapon. You heat it up, you beat it down, you fold it, you heat it, you beat it. Every time you repeat that over and over, all the tough stuff you go through, you make a finer and finer steel that can be crafted into a finer weapon or a finer instrument. Here, you were not being punished, you were being prepared. Now, heroes aren't the ones who have an easy path. That's the truth. They're the ones that just keep walking anyway. A recent episode I did is aligned. Try again anyway. You are actually the hero of your life, even when you forget it. even when your inner critic tries to tell you something else. So, let's get to one of my favorite conversations, the inner critic versus the inner advocate. Bum, bum, bum. It's the hero and the anti-hero. Let's talk about the two narrators inside you. There's the inner critic and there's the inner advocate. The inner critic is loud, harsh, dramatic, fear-based. It writes in absolutes. You always mess up. You're not enough. You're not good enough. You're not strong enough. You're late. You don't deserve it. You suck. You suck. You suck. The inner advocate, that's the voice of truth. The voice of strength. The voice of compassion. The voice who remembers who you are. But the truth of the inner advocate is until you really build it, it's only intentional. It's deliberate. You have to create it. You have to choose it. Because the inner critic is automatic. The inner critic looks at what went wrong, and the inner advocate looks at how you overcame it. The inner critic sees failure. The inner advocate sees you standing back up and building resilience. And the truth is, you get to choose which one. And sometimes it's not easy. It's a choice you have to make every day and every moment. But you get to choose which one of these two narrates your life. And if you choose the advocate, it's not a delusion. It's actually alignment. So, let's talk about some ways you can, say, 5 steps to rewrite your story, to change your life. Let's get practical. Let's break it down, because I don't always do this. 5 steps. First, identify the old script. What story have been telling about this event? Yeah, what is the story I've been telling over and over again? And what have I made it mean about my life? And how have I given into it holding me back? Because you know what? You can't change what you haven't become aware of. Step 2, ask yourself, what else could be true about this story? Is there another way to interpret this? Is there a version that empowers me instead of limits me? Step 3, choose an empowering narrative. Doesn't have to be perfect. We're not going to say it's got to be delusional, just truthful and powerful. Because honestly, you could have been through cycles and cycles and cycles of failure. And you can say, well, this means that I don't have a chance to make it this way. I'm just not good enough. Or you can go through cycles and cycles and cycles of failure. And you go, you know what? There's no quit in me. I'm going to keep on rising over and over again until I achieve it. Because look at how strong I am. I keep on getting back up one more time. Step 3. Oh, sorry. Step 4. Start speaking that story every day. Repeat the story of how every time I get back up, I'm one race closer to the ultimate race of my life. Because truth is there's only a finite number of failures. Because everything in balance, this too will pass, change. So no matter how many failures I've been through, if I keep on getting up one more time, eventually I'm going to hit that success. And then start telling that story over and over and over, because your nervous system is starting to believe it, and it'll believe what it hears the most. Step 5, stop telling the stories that hurt you. Every time you try to retell the painful version, Every time you do, it reinforces it. It's time to stop telling that version. Stop talking it into existence. Let it go. Move on. You don't have to lie. You just have to make up a version, tell us version that doesn't cage you. And okay, so the truth is, this is what I've learned. Your story can inspire others. You ever think about that? If you can tell the story of how you kept on getting back up, maybe your story is going to be medicine to somebody else. Because people aren't inspired by perfection. They're not inspired by failure. They're inspired by humanity. They're inspired by resilience. They're inspired by honesty. Your survival might be the blueprint someone needs to make it in this world. The thing that you've been afraid to talk about might be the exact thing someone else needs to hear to keep going. You don't need to have it all together. You just need to be willing to share the truth. But then it's not limited to others. Your story can inspire you. And this is really wild because I have experienced this. It's like when you rewrite this story, you're starting to inspire yourself to take a look at other stories you told and look at the way you didn't really see what the beauty in the story was. Because you start seeing how capable you are, how far you've come. All those moments, like when I lived through depression day after day after day, and I really realized that I kept on going. I never stopped. I was falling apart inside, but I still showed up. It's like, wow, I'm stronger than I thought. When you start realizing you survived things once that you thought would have destroyed you, and suddenly you stop apologizing for who you are, and you stop shrinking, and you stop waiting, and your story becomes your fuel. This is where I am now. This is what I want. This is my unreachable goal. Your story can change the world. And I truly believe this with all my heart. The story you tell may inspire the world. Every movement started with someone else saying, "Let me tell you what happened to me." But then choosing to tell the empowering version, not the sanitized version, not the perfect version, the courageous version. Tell the whole truth. The pain, the struggle, the nights you wanted to quit. And yet I got up again. And I just kept getting back up. Like Steve Jobs said, the most powerful person in the world is the storyteller. And that isn't just for industry leaders, it's for anyone brave enough to speak the truth. You are the author of your life. Life is happening. Things are happening, but you're the one giving meaning to it. You choose the tone. You choose the character. You choose the plot twist. You choose to be the hero. And you choose what the next chapter looks like. You're not powerless. You are the author. And authors don't let other people write their story. Neither should you. It's time to step away from the inner critic and become the narrator of your life, to be your own inner advocate. So here it is, the closing. So if there's anything I want you to take away with you today, is the story you tell may, and probably does inspire others. The story you tell will inspire you. And the story you tell may inspire the world. Do not let the inner critic write your life. Take the narrative back. Be your own inner advocate. Become the hero of your story. And remember, when you change the story, you change your life.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Your Inner Advocate, a podcast by Kimen Petersen, formerly Conversations with Kimen. If you found value in today's episode, please follow, like, and share the podcast with someone who you think may benefit from it. You can listen on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podbean, and connect on Instagram at your_inner_advocate. Until next time, keep listening to and developing your inner advocate.